Hey everybody, welcome back to Coffee with Cullotta. Today we have Denny Griffin on the show, and Denny was, I should say, Frank's co-author on all four of his books. There's a Cullotta, there's a Hole in the Wall Gang, and then the Rise and the Fall of Anthony Spilotro.
Cullotta, Cullotta, grab your favorite brew. Ask a question, he'll answer it for you. The Mafia, the Mafia, the Mafia, the Mafia. You better hit prescribe if you know what's good for you. Drinking a cup of coffee with Frank Cullotta. He'll tell you a lot. He's Frank Cullotta.
So Denny, can I start just by asking, how did you and Frank come to meet?
When I was doing my first Las Vegas mob book called The Battle for Las Vegas, I was able to contact and work with several retired Metro cops and FBI agents. And the one thing I didn't have, there was any mobsters. And I was kind of disappointed. And most of the guys from the old Hole in the Wall gang were either in prison or in witness protection or whereabouts unknown. So I asked Dennis Arnoldy, he was a retired FBI agent and had been Frank's handler when Frank became a government witness. I asked him if he knew how to contact any of these people. And he says, as a matter of fact, he said, Frank and I are in touch on a regular basis. He said, I'll be glad to talk to him and see if he'd be willing to do a phone interview with you. So we set it up, and Dennis Arnoldy hooked me up with Frank on the telephone, and that's how we first met. We talked for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. He gave me a couple of quotes to use in the book, and that was our initial contact.
Okay, and then from there, you guys, what happened after that?
I had a few months went by, and I was thinking about my conversation with Frank. And one day when I was talking to Dennis Arnoldy, I said, next time you're talking with Frank, I said, see if he's ever thought about writing his biography. I said, I said, if he'd be willing to be candid, I said, he's got a hell of a story to tell. So Dennis got a hold of Frank because Frank was in witness protection, or had a former witness protection guy. I couldn't know his new identity or his phone number or address or any personal information. So everything had to go through Dennis. And Dennis got back to me. He said, Frank is very interested in doing his biography and he'd like to meet with you and see if you guys can work together. So we ended up scheduling a meeting in Las Vegas. Frank came in. Everything was very secretive. I couldn't know ahead of time, where the meeting was going to be. Everything was done like an hour. I had a 2-day notice when Frank would be in town, but not where he would be. So the morning of the meeting, Dennis called me an hour ahead of time and told me what location to go to. And it was a casino hotel. And I went there, and then Dennis met me in the lobby and took me up to Frank's room. And we spent about 2.5 hours talking. And I got to tell you, I was very excited to get to meet Frank, but I had some concerns. I started getting cold feet because I started thinking, I said, Frank didn't have a big formal education, but he was obviously very street savvy. And I said, I wonder when he meets me, I'm got a law enforcement background, is he going to sense or be able to read me and what I think of criminals? I didn't hold them in a particularly high regard. So, but everything went very well. And like I said, we talked 2.5 hours or so, and Frank gave me some transcripts he had done. He had had them typed up about his life story. It was not a lot of detail, but the highlights. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a copy. So we made the deal on a handshake. And as I was driving home that day, I started thinking, I says, now I just met a guy who's been a career criminal, and I make a deal on a handshake. I wonder if that's really smart. I wasn't sure it was the brightest thing I'd ever done. But it worked out very well. We had some issues with the writing itself, but as far as the arrangement with Frank, um, worked out good. But we ran into problems when we started the writing because I couldn't get a hold of Frank. Every time I had a question, I had to call Dennis Arnoldy, who would have to get a hold of Frank, and then Frank a few days later would call me, and it was very cumbersome. So after, when I told Frank, I said, we're never going to get this book done, Frank. I said, not the way we're working here. It just is too much of an animal. So he came into Vegas to meet me, and he said, well, we'll get this ironed out. And he did. He came to my place, and we spent the afternoon talking. And by the time we finished, he agreed that I would be able to learn how to get a hold of him. I'd have his, phone number and so forth. So once we got that ironed out, everything was a lot smoother.
So what year was this when you guys started to do all of this?
It would have been, we started work on the project in 2005. The book was published in 2006.
Okay. And at the time, because he was still in hiding, he wasn't, quote, in the witness protection, but he was still hanging low and not really revealing himself as far as releasing the book. Did the Operation Family Secrets trial happening have anything to do with his releasing the book and deciding that that was the time?
Well, I talked to Frank several times during our writing stage, and I asked him, I said, Frank, I said, what do you have any fears about this? I mean, do you think, the fact that it's going to be out public is going to cause you any grief? And he said, almost everybody who would have a personal grudge against me, he said, is either dead or in prison.
Okay.
He said, I have no fear of those guys. He said, my only concern now is that kind of like out of the Wild West, the up and coming gunslinger wants to bump off the old timer to get a notch on his belt and make a name for himself. So he said, I'd be more concerned about people I don't know that are trying to get a reputation, would want to take me out. So he wasn't all that concerned about his former associates. He was more concerned about a stranger who just wanted to build a reputation.
Sure. Now, I moved to Las Vegas in 2006, and that's when you and I first met.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I made a video for you.
Yes.
To promote your book, Cullotta.
Yes.
Well, you and Frank's book. Gosh, I'm never getting that wrong again. Last time I said it was your book, I got fired from a job, all right? I say it again, Frank, come and haunt me, okay? He promised me he would. So when that book came out, and I made a video for you, we met, and that was when the Vegas mob tour first started. And I recall you, Dennis Arnoldy, Frank, all riding the tour in the very beginning, and Robert Allen giving the tour. And that's when you guys also made your interview video, when Robert interviewed all three of you, which was our vault videos on the channel. You can see Denny in those videos. But that's when we first met. And not that I knew you very well, but I did a little bit of work with you. And you seem to be a pretty all right guy. And so over this time that I've been working on the Coffee with Cullotta, I've been talking about writing a miniseries, and I've been working on writing this miniseries. And a few weeks ago, and I just want to let all the prescribers know this, but a few weeks ago, Denny and I were talking on the phone, and he said to me, you mentioned that you were also had written a pilot for a TV show about Frank and Tony growing up. And I took a look at it. Denny sent it to me. He was kind enough to say, here, take a look, see if you get any ideas. And I think it would be a fantastic idea, and I ran it by you already, and that is Denny is going to write this screenplay with me. You and I are going to work on it together. And who better than you, because you know Frank's story inside and out, because you helped him write it and you wrote it with him, and you guys have had a lot of other personal conversations, right?
Exactly, yes.
and this is going to be a very exciting project. And the more we were talking about it and thinking about it, I have another idea, but I don't want to share that just yet with everyone because that's a little more personal, and I don't want to reveal all of that yet to the audience. So I hear so. So Denny, when you wrote the second book, tell me how did your relationship with Frank grow?
Well, we started out strictly, as they said in The Godfather, strictly business, and it was, you know, and in fact, that working with Frank, when his first book came out, the Cullotta bio, opened the door for several other people. People saw that, you know, book for sale and on Amazon and so forth. And other former mobsters started contacting me, wanting me to do their books with them. So Frank's book opened the door for me in a lot of areas besides the books with Frank. But we started doing events together. Of course, everything, you know, when you have a book out, everything's get out there and get the word out and do book signings and do talks and do these various things. So we started spending a lot of time together on the phone and in person. And we developed, I think, a mutual respect and a trust. And the trust thing was very important. Frank was from the environment that, you know, you didn't trust anybody. Everybody you knew was out to screw you and take advantage of you and maybe kill you. So the trust took some time. It took some time for us to really trust each other. You know, there were royalties to be cut up from the books as they started to sell and so on. And I learned one thing with Frank: you always have a good accounting of you know what was sold and what you made and how it was going to get shopped. So, but all that stuff over the course of time transformed into a friendship then instead of just a business relationship. And Frank met my wife, the Bear, on several occasions. And they became buddies, which you know helped us bond even more.
Sure.
So in fact, when you called me the morning Frank passed and told me about it, you know, I had been kind of expecting it because I knew he had a lot of things against him. But even suspecting it was coming, I told Bear, and we both cried together. It was quite an experience, quite a day.
Yes, it definitely was. It's tough to understand because when you get to know somebody as intimately as you knew Frank, and you really get to know a person, not just you really get to know somebody intimately, who they really are inside. It's tough to explain that to somebody who looks at this from 3 steps away and goes, these people, how could they be friends with this guy? How could you be, you know, how can the prescribers want to listen to this guy tell stories about things, you know? It's tough to understand that, but he is a tough guy, and he had to always be that tough guy character, I think, in his mind. But inside, he really wasn't that, you know, mean. I don't think. Anyway, I mean, I saw him come unglued a couple of times at me, you know, yelling and such, but he even told me in the last few months, he said, you know, just ignore it. He said, that's just me, you know, being me. He said, just ignore it when I'm like that and forget it. Did he ever get upset with you about anything?
I think initially a couple of times. I was kind of the gatekeeper for him for a while, and Dennis Arnoldy too, to a great degree. But after I got privy to how to contact Frank and so forth, and people who read his book and you know and heard of him otherwise didn't know how to contact Frank, so they would reach out to me, and they'd want to like a TV documentary companies and so on. They'd want to get in touch with Frank to see if he'd participate in some kind of a project with him. And I would get the information and pass it on to Frank. And I'd say, you know, these people are trying to get a hold of you. What are your, you know, what are your thoughts, or what do you want me to tell them? Or, and then Frank would, you know, if he wanted to, he'd take it from there because he got paid for everything he did. Eventually, he told me that he used to do all this stuff for free, but then he realized that everybody else was making money on his participation except him. So
Mhm.
he started, you know, saying he was no longer going to work for free, and he would negotiate whatever deal he made. I'd be out of it at that point. But one time I opened the door for a person that he hadn't approved, and he wasn't particularly happy about that deal. So he let me know it,
Yeah,
and it didn't happen again.
right.
So, and in fact, though, Frank asked me one day after I introduced him to one of these TV people, and he said, "How much are you getting out of this?" I said, "What do you mean?" Well, he said, you're, you know, if it weren't for you, he said, they wouldn't get a hold of me, and you know, he said, so you deserve something." And I said, well, I never thought about it. He said, you mean to tell me you're not getting paid? I said, no. So he taught me some lessons. He said, you got to get a set of brains on you. He said, and I was reluctant because I had never done that before. But the next time somebody contacted me wanting to deal with Frank, I said, and by the way, I said, that'll cost you X number of dollars for me to make the connection. And I was
Mhm.
expecting the guy to hang up. He said, oh, that's okay. I said, I've been letting this go all this time. I said, Frank was right.
Yeah, yeah. Got to get paid.
Absolutely.
I um so you guys how close did you end up becoming? Going out to dinners, going out to lunches, that kind of closeness?
Yes. We,
Visiting,
we,
even going to each other's homes.
yeah. Yeah. We became very close. We spent, like I say, a lot of time together at my house, at restaurants, at Frank's, you know, wherever he was. And he shared a lot of his, then, of course, personal life things that were going on in his life. And we talked a lot, and, got to know each other even better. And I got to tell you, as the years went by, anytime, especially if I was having a bad day, you know, sometimes you just have those days where nothing seems to be going right. You get a little disgusted. And God, Frank would call, and I'll tell you, within 30 seconds, he had me roaring. I mean, he just had that way about him. You know, I forget all my troubles. And by the time we got done talking, I was having a great day. So I really used to love that. When I see the phone ring, you know, see Frank on the caller ID, I know I was in for a good day.
Yeah, nice. That's yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, do you know some stories about Frank that aren't in any of his books?
Probably. Uh, yes, I guess I do. That's a short answer, yes.
Okay. And do you know any stories about him from his childhood that are not in his books?
I think we covered pretty much most of his childhood, you know, about the fights and meeting Tony and how they met on the streets, and
Mhm.
a lot of their criminal activity, how they started doing various criminal capers. Um, and the biggest thing I think that I found interesting, well, I found it all interesting, but I was particularly intrigued with the fact that his teenagers, you know, 13, 14, 15 years old, uh, Tony already had his mind made up to be an outfit guy. I mean, that was his goal. He wanted to be a made man, as they call it. And Frank had the opposite, or not opposite, but Frank didn't want to be a made man. He wanted to be a criminal. He liked the life, but he didn't want to be beholden or locked into the outfit. He wanted to have a certain amount of freedom and flexibility. So they both liked that lifestyle, but they had different goals in mind. Frank wanted to be an independent, successful criminal. Tony wanted to be, for him, the ultimate was being indoctrinated as a made man into the organization.
Right. And it's kind of funny too, because you would think it had been the other way around, because it was Frank's dad who was into who was not a mobster. He wasn't a made guy in the outfit, but he was a criminal and a wheelman. And Tony's father, nothing to do with anything criminal, just a hardworking guy. It seems like it'd be the opposite way around, right? That the guy with the crime background would then want to be like that more.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Tony's dad, when I first heard about Patsy, I was under the impression or thought what I would find was that his place was he was running it in conjunction with the mob, and I thought he was maybe part of it. But it turned out, like you say, he was totally innocent. He was just a businessman, hardworking businessman, and the mobsters liked his food. A lot of them came there to eat and so on. But he would, yeah, he was clean, you know, it was, which kind of surprised me.
So in the miniseries that we're going to put together, we're going to, of course, show all of that. Is there anything that you think we should add into the miniseries outline about the youths, about them growing up?
Yeah, I think, Adam, it would be nice to include some of the other characters they dealt with as they were starting to get into their criminal enterprises, and some of the people that that they felt sold them out or might have sold them out and had to be taught a lesson, if you will, or possibly stuffed down a sewer. And there was
Robin Dragon.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, Robin Dragon, that story. Frank didn't ever tell it either on the channel. I think I rehashed it, but he did tell it to me on the phone. I have it recorded. I have him recorded telling that story. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And there's characters also that need to be worked in. Mad Sam 100% needs to be part of this thing.
Sure.
It's got to be. Mad Sam's got to be in it. I'm actually always still putting the wish list together, my original wish list for who I wanted to play Mad Sam, and I'm trying to find in my notes here. Anyhow, I have a bunch picked, but I think Leonardo Dicaprio, we'll never get him, but Leonardo Dicaprio would be an awesome Mad Sam. Also, Christian Bale would be a pretty good Mad Sam.
Yes.
Be fun. So Mama Josie. Let's talk Mama Josie. Mama Josie, I think, should be Frank's conscience, where every episode he has interactions with his mother, whether he's in jail and he talks to her on the phone, or she comes to visit him, or if he's obviously when he's growing up, he's spending a lot of time talking with her. But I think every episode he should kind of interact with, like almost like Tony Soprano talked to a psychiatrist each episode, or Lucifer. They took that page out of that book. Lucifer does that with his psychiatrist every episode. So Mama Josie, I think, could be a major player in this. What do you think?
I think absolutely, yeah, because Frank and Frank did. I mean, you know, that what he told me was that was one of his regrets was that, you know, what he had put his mother through because of the life he led, and then she was always wanting to, you know, be on the straight and narrow and so on. So yeah, I think she should certainly be a key player.
Okay. I have for her character traits, because I'm putting different character traits together just for the show Bible, so that everything, you know, so everybody has their traits. But Josephine Cullotta, Mama Josie, independent woman, no bullshit. She's direct and to the point. She loves Frank and is the only person who believes that he can be legit and safe in this world. But deep down, so her only goal is to make him a good guy, make him understand how to be how to care, how to love, how to, you know, all those good traits and good qualities she tries to instill in him. But yet she knows deep down that he's going to be like his father, like the man she married. I think that that's a good description of what she's going to be like. And I also put some descriptions down. For instance, Frank You're going to love this. Frank, he's truthful. It's
Yeah.
the first thing I wrote down. No, wait. What I mean by truthful is he never tells a lie. Okay? Never tells a lie to anybody, like in his, the guys he works with. So he never lies to Tony. He never lies to any of the guys around him, but they'll lie to the police. Yet later, when he rolls, now he'll never tell a lie to the police, but he'll lie to the mobsters. Okay, so that's what I mean by truthful. He's angry, he's meticulous, he has a strong constitution, he's self-conscious of his I, and he's loyal and he's calculated. Tony, violent, loving, funny, tough. He's got little man syndrome. He's vengeful and loyal, ? Because
Yes.
the story of the two brothers, because he's the one who's unloyal to Frank in the end. So anyhow, that's some of the ideas anyway, that I've put down. So what do you think?
I'm ready.
You ready?
Ready to get started.
All right. And I'm sure that all the prescribers are ready for this journey as well, because we're going to be asking you guys questions like, who do you think should play this, or who do you think would be good in that? You guys are going to help us come up with everything. We're going to all write it together, the Cullotta crew.
Good.
All right.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So Denny, thank you very much. Oh, hey, wait, before we finish this up, David Bowman, you
Yes.
wrote another book, and the book's
Yes.
called
Bringing Down Cullotta, the story Casino couldn't tell you.
Okay. And who's bringing down Cullotta?
David Bowman was originally from Colorado. He moved into Vegas when he was a young man, 19, and he started hanging out with at the Upper Crust, Frank's restaurant, and he became very good friends with Elaine's brother, Jerry, and they started becoming tipsters for the Hole in the Wall gang, telling them where they could make drug scores, knocking off drug dealers. I don't mean knocking off in the physical sense, but stealing from the drug dealers. And that was how Bowman first met Frank and the Hole in the Wall gang, through that. And then from there, some things happened. Some of them were a little bit comical, actually, but some things happened that put Frank and Bowman on opposite sides. And Bowman ended up becoming an informant, confidential informant for first Las Vegas Metro, and then for the feds, the FBI and the federal prosecutors. And that's what his story is about, is how all this developed and what happened. And it was a story that has gone untold since since 1981, 82, in that era. So we're going almost 40 years that nobody's known. When people think of an informant in conjunction with Frank and the Hole in the Wall gang, they think of Sal Romano.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the research I had done on that whole era, I never knew about David Bowman until Frank introduced me to him. So I never knew about it for all those years, for almost 40 years, that this guy had been, involved in what happened with Frank. I don't want to go into too much detail at this point, but it's going to be it's quite a book, I believe.
Sounds fascinating, and I know you've told me a little bit more about it. And believe me when I tell you guys, it's fascinating, really fascinating. Yes. And I thought I had heard it all too. So this is,
uncharted territory.
Yeah, completely. It's really, it's exciting.
The thing is, because probably the bulk of your viewers and subscribers are fans of Frank's. I probably should set the record straight right at the beginning here. But what was transpired between David Bowman and Frank Cullotta was not personal animosity. Okay. Like I say, they ended up with a conflict, and David knew he had to do something or Frank would probably kill him. That's how serious it was. So that's how this got going. But then David Bowman last August, just a little over a year ago, came into Vegas and he signed up for one of Frank's tours. They hadn't seen each other in all this time. And he went on the tour and made it back alive, I should add. And they got reacquainted with Frank. And they're not saying they were long lost buddies, but they got along okay. And Frank called me the next day and told me about David and asked me if I would write David's book for him. So this project was actually started by Frank. It wasn't anything where Bowman contacted me. It was, and Frank participated in the writing of the book regarding adding his perspectives to certain incidents that David described, where David would have, what he knew about it and his perspective. And then Frank would fill in the blanks a little bit as far as what was going on from the other side. So, it was good. So this was nothing done behind Frank's back or under. Frank was the one that actually set it up. So I just want to make sure people understand that it's not a Frank bashing book.
Right.
It's more David's main angst, if you will, is with what law enforcement and the federal prosecutor did to him and how they treated him. So that's the focus of the book, but it's about Frank.
Very interesting. I can't wait to read it.
Me either.
Hey, speaking of reading books, this is a fun little fact for you. I don't know if Frank told you this, but I was at Frank's one day and I brought something up in one of the stories we were shooting an interview. And he said, "Oh, you remember that?" And I said, "Yeah, it was in this book and such." And I said, I said, Frank, when I was a tour guide, I must have read this book like at least a dozen times because I was always referencing it. And I said, so I read your book over and over. And again, working on the project, same thing. And Frank looked at me and he said, I've never read my books. And I said to him, seriously? Like you worked on them with Denny, they came out, but you never opened them and read them? And he said, no. I said, you should, they're really good. Would you believe the next day I came over and there was Cullotta halfway read sitting there and he had a bookmark in it. And the next day I came over, he's like, yeah, I finished Cullotta. I said, how was it? He says, it's a good book. He's like, a couple of things are mixed up in it. He said, but it's pretty damn good. I said, you think that one's good? You should read the other two you wrote. And he did. He read all three of them. And the last month that he was home before he went back to the hospital, he read all three of his books that he wrote. Yep.
That's good. Yes.
Anyway, I thought you'd enjoy hearing that. So
I do. Thank you.
You got it. Hey, Denny, I'm looking forward to doing this project with you. And thanks so much for taking some time to talk to me and letting me introduce you to the prescribers. They're not subscribers here. They're prescribers.
Prescribers. Okay.
That's right. Prescribers.
I got it.
So I can't wait for the prescribers to put their input to us. I wonder if anybody's ever done this before, writing something like doing it this way, asking people for their feedback, fans of the person that you're writing about.
It's the first I've heard of it.
It could be really fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see. We'll find out.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thank you, Denny. I will talk to you soon.
You're welcome, Adam. Been a pleasure.
All right, buddy. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching this video, everyone. Please be sure to visit frankcullotta.com for coffee cups and t-shirts. Also, hit the like button, share this video. Oh, and don't forget to
hit that subscribe button. Subscribe. I found gold. I hope you enjoyed yourself. God bless.